I would say that Colm Tóibín is one of the finest writers in English today, except that isn't quite true, the English part. For he's taken and shaped that tongue into a language and a music that are very much his own. More impressive even than that, he has managed to create a different sound or vocabulary or style or tone for each of his extraordinary novels. I realized that most clearly on reading his latest, House of Names, a retelling of the ancient Greek story of the murder of Agamemnon and its deadly ripples through the house of Atreus. The language is spare, stark. I'd say Spartan, but that's the wrong tribe. It most assuredly is potent. How different are the melodies in Brooklyn, or the Jamesian mellifluences of The Master. But in truth, I'm thrilled to read almost anything from Colm Tóibín's pen, be it his brilliant critical appraisal of the poetry of Elizabeth Bishop, or his piece on Catalonian independence in last week's Guardian. For his many triumphs to date, and in anticipation of others still to come, it is my great pleasure on behalf of the trustees of the Kenyon Review to present Colm Tóibín with the 2017 Award for Literary Achievement.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much. In 1972, I came from a small town in the southeast of Ireland to Dublin to study at University College Dublin. And University College Dublin, the English department in those years, was a haven of close reading. And that idea that a poem does not mean, as Dennis Donahue would say, a poem does. And it was our job to connect and to analyze and to study what the poem did. The problem we had, of course, is that we were doing this in Ireland. And the influence, of course, of I.A. Richards and F.R. Leavis were coming from another island just beside us, which we'd always had a very close and uneasy relationship with, almost like siblings. Certain sorts of siblings. And so that in the same way as now with undergraduates, in the same way as they would mention in lecture halls, the word Derrida or the word Deleuze are mentioned. Those words are mentioned casually, easily, and naturally. The names John Crowe Ransom and Alan Tate and Kenyon College became part of our lives. And the books, God Without Thunder, and the poems, and the ways in which they wrote both sensuously and intelligently in the tradition of T.S. Eliot about poetry mattered enormously to us and were part of the ordinary way in which we read and studied these names. I read Alan Tate's The Fathers as an undergraduate for no reason other than these were the sort of books we were reading in Dublin in those years. And of course, in those very years I'm talking about, Robert Lowell was spending a great deal of time in Ireland. He was married to the Irish woman Caroline Blackwood and was in Dublin a great deal. And so that journey he made in 1937 from New England to Kenyon College to study with John Crowe Ransom and Alan Tate was something that we knew about. And the idea that he had gone there and had found his roommates to be Peter Taylor and Randall Jarrell seemed like something we lived with as an extraordinary idea. And Lowell had an immense influence on Irish poetry, not only on the poetry of Seamus Heaney, who was a close friend of his, but also on a poet like Derek Mahon, on that singing line of Derek Mahon's, which came so much from Lowell, of course, which came in turn from where Lowell had studied. So that as each edition of the Kenyon Review was coming into the library, we thought of it, oddly enough, in Dublin as ours, in the way that culture blows in on the wind. That journal blew in on our wind and made a great difference to our lives as to how we saw language, as to how we saw criticism, as to how we saw the great connection between reading and thinking, and reading, as I say, sensuously and intelligently at the same time. Finally, I want to just take one word, one single word, and watch how it moved on the wind in the same way. In 1980, I interviewed the Irish writer Mary Beckett, who's, I think, 2 books about the Troubles in Northern Ireland are the 2 best books on that subject. And I couldn't work out from the tapes one word she had said. And I played the tape back to various people. No one could work it out, and I had to call her in the end to say, can I play this back to you? What is that word you said? You said, you have to thole. You have to thole. She said, well, you have to thole. Do you not know the word? And I said, no, I don't know how to spell the word or what the word is. So it's Thole. Thole. And she said, well, do you not use the word? I said, not in Wexford, where I'm from. And it means to tolerate suffering or to put up with things that are happening that are bad. And when Seamus Heaney came to translate Beowulf, and again that uneasy relationship between the 2 islands of wondering, what right do I have to translate this Old English poem from the neighbouring island? He came across the word Tholian. And of course, because it had a thorn symbol in the orthography rather than the TH, he looked at it and trying to work out what it would mean, how he would translate it, until he said it, Tholian, and realized that his aunt had used the same word as Mary Beckett, that it had gone from Old English into the lore in some way or other, made its way up to Scotland, via the plantation of Ulster, had made its way across to Northern Ireland, had been used regularly by the Protestant Presbyterian planters under James I or Elizabeth, and had eventually made its way into the tongues, into the mouths of the Gaelic speakers who were slowly moving into becoming English speakers, and so was part of their natural speech, the word thole. So we suddenly realized this language, this Old English of Beowulf, was actually his English, was the English that had come strangely to him, a word that had not survived in the other island, had remained in his island. And then he wondered, is it anywhere else? Has the word come anywhere else? And he found a poem called Here Lies a Lady by John Crowe Ransom. And he found that here it is, the only time he could find it, the fair ladies, long may you bloom, and sweetly may thole. That it had made its way via Scots, via some way or other, into the lexicon of John Crowe Ransom, the founder of the Kenyon Review. And Heaney was absolutely delighted how it had travelled. So I think that idea of as we write and as we think about writing, as we write essays, as we write stories or novels or poems, that idea just of putting a word down and not knowing at some point in the future where that word will go, and being alert to the fact that that word has come a long distance to us, and the fact that what a number of people were doing in Gambia in those years was making an extraordinary difference to the life of someone who came up from a small town in the southeast of Ireland to Dublin in 1972. Thank you very much.